Hi everybody, my name is Jason. I'm recording this because I was on the Thom Hartman show today, and just wanted to make a comment before the video that while I was on there to defend our Second Amendment and our right to freedom, Thom absolutely was really difficult to talk to. I can understand why Alex Jones went off on Piers Morgan, because all these media guys, they do the exact same thing. They cut you off. If you're live, it's a little bit harder to do that, and I understand why Alex Jones went nuts didn't go nuts, but got his point across very well on Piers Morgan. Was when you call in, they mute you, they mute the caller so that the host, or Thom Hartman, can say what he wants to say, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it has nothing to do with the point you're trying to get across. And that's exactly what happened in this interview. It was very frustrating, but you know what, all in all, I see this as a big win, because I think that he really showed his true colors. You know, he claims to be for the Second Amendment, for our Constitution, and this obviously proves that he is absolutely against it. The statements that he made are just absolutely ridiculous. And I swear, this guy is just, he's like lukewarm. He reports on the Monsanto, GMO legislation, and out of one side of his mouth, and then his forked tongue says that all Americans should be disarmed. So anyway, watch and enjoy.
Listening to the Thom Hartman program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartman here with you. And, what an interesting day this has turned into. It's just a little biting social satire, as they say.
Whatever that means.
Anyhow. Anything goes. So, Jason in Santa Cruz, California. Hey, Jason.
Hi, Tom. How are you doing today?
I am well. You sound upset about the smallpenisgunclub.com, is that?
Well, I went and checked it out. It wasn't not the site that really upsets me. It's the context in which you seem to present it after the story about the guys that were carrying their AR-15s at some sort of rally, I guess.
It was a Mothers Against Gun Violence type of group, and so they went to strut their AR-15s in front of these mothers.
Well, you know what, I wasn't there, and I'm not sure if you were, so I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I'll tell you what.
You can watch the video online.
No, I definitely will. It was just the comment that one of the callers made about the forefathers, the writers of our Constitution, not, and then you made a comment, well, they're not hoarding guns, and it's like, you know what, I don't believe that those people are hoarding guns, but, there's nothing wrong with that, and if you see, there's a complete and total attack on the American people by our government right now, and it ties into the Monsanto story that you told them that I've been reading about as well, which, from what I understand, Monsanto lawyers were heavily involved in writing that piece of legislation and secretly, to get it passed. So what you're seeing is a tyrannical government.
So Jason, are you, first of all...
See how he faded me out? I actually had continued talking, and he cuts me off about halfway through every sentence, or even after I try to answer some of his ridiculous questions. He cuts me off, he mutes me to the audience, and then begins his propaganda routine. So anyway, continue.
Are you actually trying to tell me that you think that if you have more and bigger guns, you're going to be able to do something about Monsanto buying laws?
It ties into...
How is that going to work?
Like,
What I meant to say was that ties into the Monsanto legislation, ties into all of the other things like NDAA legislation, which allows for indefinite detention and the murder of American citizens, both foreign and abroad. It ties into all of the other attacks on America, you know, vaccines, pesticides, artificial sugars that cause tumors, you know, fluoride in the water, just it goes on and on and on, you know, not to mention the banking system, you know, which is a complete fiat, you know, scam. Anyway, it goes on and on. And he just cuts me off. He doesn't allow me to say any of that. And, you know, even though it's much needed information, which is why I'm recording this and putting this out on YouTube.
That ties into our right as citizens to defend ourselves against tyrannical government. And then you mentioned, you said...
Okay, so how does, just tell me how this works. Is this a Tim McVeigh argument? Is this a, you know, let's blow up a federal building and that...
I'll say how it works. It works when the citizenry, when the people are armed, our government is going to be a lot less likely to come and basically enslave us. They're going to be a lot less likely to be Hitler and Mao and you know, and look what's going on in the countries where the guns are taken. You know, crime rates are through the roof. You know, and they're going to spout, oh, well, America has more gun violence than this or that. It's like, you know what, let's look at overall crime, okay? States in which have the least amount of guns have the highest rate of stabbings, muggings, carjackings, shootings, and crime rates are just through the roof in states like that. And if you look at countries, look at Mexico, where the citizens are, it's illegal for the citizens to own guns, and I think they had something like 20,000 gun deaths or murders last year from the cartels. And, you know, our government was complicit in that. Our Attorney General Eric Holder was shipping thousands of guns in this Fast and Furious operation over there, which he was caught red-handed doing. And as a result, you know, thousands of people have been killed with those guns. So, you know, this Thom Hartman guy, he's just ridiculous. While I like what he says about Monsanto and a few other things, you know, he's like, you know, Jesus saying the lukewarm, you know, be hot or be cold, you know, or I'll spit you out of my mouth. This Thom Hartman guy is lukewarm, you know. He says some things and which you know, people like, but he doesn't really give a crap about the Constitution, you know. He instead wants to report on some ex-baseball player who butt dials from his cell phone. It's like, oh yeah, you know, that's a real important story right now when there's so many real stories going on that the public needs to know about.
That'll bring down the government argument?
No, absolutely not. I mean, hey, the false flag attacks that the government does to blow up their own buildings, that's another issue altogether. What I'm saying is the Second Amendment wasn't put there to hunt game. The Second Amendment...
No, it was put there mostly by the southern states to maintain their slave...
It's another way where he cut me off. The Second Amendment was specifically put there to allow the citizenry to guard themselves against tyrannical government and any threat, foreign and domestic. And domestic. It is the Second Amendment. Okay, right after free speech. It is the second most important thing. So, which actually plays into what he says a little bit later on about Martin Luther King in Gandhi, you know, doing with words. You know, but when words don't work, then you have the Second Amendment.
It was put there to defend the people against tyranny.
And it was put there by the northern states to protect the people against the tyranny of a military-industrial complex. Jefferson was very clear about this, and he was from Virginia. He was one of the southern guys, but he was the lead spokesperson for it. But it was in the Pennsylvania Constitution, before the United States even became the United States, that standing armies during times of peace are a known enemy of democracy. They didn't use the word democracy, but of a free state, I think is what they said. And therefore, there shall be no standing armies during times of peace. If there's no standing army, then how does a state defend itself? It has a citizens' militia. You know, I'm actually a proponent of that. I think that we should go back to that. That's the reason why, in fact, by the way, that the only thing in the entire Constitution that's limited to a 2-year appropriation, you can spend money on...
So he's saying we shouldn't have guns, but we should have guns in peacetime. You know, this guy's a jackass. Can't believe it. Just nonsensical BS. You know, it's a shame that he's on RT News, you know, because they have so many good reporters and they present so much truth, and then they got this guy here with... anyway.
Social Security, you can fund it for 100 years and take all the taxes right now if you want. You can spend money on the post office, you can spend money on anything you want, except the Army. Article 1, Section 8 explicitly says that the Army may not be funded for any longer than 2 years. 1 congressional session. That's it.
Except in the case of war or
even
emergency, which every president going back 10 or 12 years has made sure that we are in a...
No, we actually have been doing the appropriations every 2 years forever. There's never been a 2-year period where we didn't do a congressional appropriation. There's no exception necessary. But back to your point, Jason. You're taking offense at the smallpenisgunclub.com.
Well, I'm taking offense at how you presented it. Like anybody that has a gun or has a rifle,
no, I'm not saying
thinks that they're making up with a small penis by having a big gun.
And you know, if you look at the Small Penis Gun Club website, it's actually Ted Cruz's website, and if you look on it, he is trying to lead the fight for the Second Amendment rights, and he has been doing so throughout his whole career, evidently. You know, I'm not too familiar with Ted Cruz, but I'll tell you what, if he's going to protect the Constitution, including the Second Amendment, then I'm all for the guy. You know, so obviously he made this smallpenisgunclub.com to go to his site as, to make fun or to be, ironic or, to people that think that people that have big guns have small penises. You know, obviously that's what that website's meant for. So anyway.
You know what? No. You know what? If I'm going to defend my family against anybody, whether it's foreign and domestic, I want to have what they got to have coming at me.
So you want to?
And I have a right to have.
You want a tank?
And you know what? If that's what it takes to defend myself against tyranny, then absolutely. You know what? That's what it was for. It's for defense against tyranny. And if you look at...
So, Jason, you would go out and buy a tank. I mean, a tank seems a little extreme. How about in the middle ground? Actually, I suppose they're even more destructive, like a shoulder-fired rocket launcher, surface-to-air missile. I mean, these are arms. They're arms that can be carried by a single person. You don't even need to prop them on the ground, so it's not like it doesn't fall into the category of cannonry, which a tank I think would. And yeah, they're illegal. Are you suggesting that people should work to make shoulder-fired missile launchers legal, and that would make our country safer somehow?
Absolutely not. But what you're seeing is an attack on our people.
Okay, so I got that. I got that. That you're convinced that the government is coming to get us. So and you have to have a.
So now he's turning me into some kind of conspiracy theorist. This guy, he's good at making himself look like a jackass and a fool who does not even comprehend what I'm trying to say. He's very good at being deceptive about what he's about. You know, it's like on the if you read this book by his cover, you don't know what he's about. You have to read through 300 or 400 pages, and then his true colors start to come out that he really is not for the Constitution at all. He appears to be, but he really isn't. If you listen to him, he's very lukewarm, and on this issue for gun control, he's dead wrong.
A gun to stop them, and I'm just wondering if they come in, with helicopters and tanks, which they have. What are you going to do?
Well, now it's drones all across America. It's the NDAA where they're.
Well, you're not going to take out a drone at 20,000 feet with an AR-15.
No, you're not. But
the bullets will only go up 3,000 feet.
And I guarantee you that an armed citizenry, okay, is going to be a lot safer than an unarmed citizenry.
I don't think so.
They only have 222.
I don't think so, Jason. What I see when I look at the lessons of history, when I look at the civil rights revolution in the United States.
Yeah, let's take a look at history. Let's take a look at Nazi Germany, who took their people's guns. Let's take a look at Mexico, who took their people's guns. Let's take a look at China, took their people's guns. Let's take a look at all the other countries out there that took their people's guns and then turned into a dictatorship immediately and started killing off their citizenry. Government is the biggest killer of human beings of any other source on the planet. So conservatively, 250 million people that we know of have been killed. I believe that's just in the last 150 years. And that's conservatively. That's not even taking into account all the soldiers that died. So it's well over 300 million people that governments have killed.
That was done not because Martin Luther King said, "How dare you hit me with a water hose? I'm going to shoot you." It was because he stood up and he said, "I'm going to use nonviolence to show how morally corrupt you are."
Yeah, but you know what? When words fail, as they often do, and they're coming to take your guns, and they're coming to force you into a FEMA re-education camp, which is in their own white papers, words aren't going to do you much good. You better be armed and ready to resist tyrannical dictatorship that our government's leading to. They've already done treasonous things. Obama's done things that should have gotten him impeached already. The NDAA. Just so many things. It's time to wake up, people. Please, wake up.
And when I look at